A huge thank you to everyone who continues to support The Habit at patreon.com/doseofbuckley. Because of you, I don't have to be a starving artist. Although I am kinda hungry right now, but that's not your fault. Anyway, thanks. Watch this. If I asked you what artists are selling the most albums in the US in the 2020s, and we'll get to the asterisk of that sentence shortly, what would your answer be? I'll tell you who's in first place, and it's not even close. Taylor Swift. 3 new albums in the 2020s so far, all of them moving over 1 million album equivalent units. Her album Midnights did that in a week. Her re-released Taylor's versions also managed to move nearly 1 million each. Second place likely goes to Bad Bunny, selling over 3.8 million copies of an album whose title I'm not gonna embarrass myself by trying to pronounce. It's the best-selling non-English album in the US ever. So, who's third? Drake? He's done alright. Certified Lover Boy definitely moved over 1 million. Adele's 30 had a good run at the end of 2021 and into the beginning of 2022. Maybe you're like, I don't know, that hot clown woman with the ass that everyone can't shut up about? Yeah, I'm gonna get yelled at for this, I know it. But no, Ice Spice actually has yet to put a whole album out. No, would you believe it? The third best-selling artist in the US of this current decade is Morgan Wallen. Yes, the Morgan Wallen who got caught on a Ring camera yelling the N-word at his buddy in the middle of the night. His album, Dangerous the Double Album, spent 10 weeks at the top of the Billboard Top 200, and just in those weeks, moved over 1.2 million copies. And his current album, One Thing at a Time, as of writing this, has sold over 1.8 million copies in its first 8 weeks. I was actually considering calling this video Morgan Wallen Keeps Conquering Cancel Culture, based on my video from a couple of years ago. I don't want to spend a ton of time on the, let's call it, political aspect of this, but maybe you could chalk the success of the first album up to goobers buying it or streaming it out of spite because we can't let the libs win. But that was 2 years ago, and his new album is actually doing better. I think at this point we just have to live with the idea that even normal people like Morgan Wallen. And you know what? I think he's kinda earned it. He drunkenly called his white friend the N-word like a 16-year-old edgelord while some creep recorded him in the middle of the night. He apologized for it, like a man, and then just moved on. You know what he doesn't do? Spend all of his time on Twitter going, "My pronouns are bite me," and sharing Babylon Bee posts and memes from Tim Pool. In fact, he doesn't do anything remotely controversial. On Twitter, it's all promo posts. The new album's out, tickets are on sale for his tour, tickets have sold out for his tour. On Instagram, it's all photos from his tour. This is how you act like a grown-up. It's the same thing I respect Chris Pratt for, and it's how you actually make the loudmouths who do believe one mistake or perceived issue should equal a life sentence look foolish. You have the doofuses who are like, Chris Pratt belongs to that church that hates the gays, he should never work again. And then you go to Chris Pratt's Instagram page and he's hanging out with sick kids at the Ronald McDonald House. Yeah, what a monster. Let me know how that goes for you. Shitting on a guy who dresses up as Star-Lord and spends hours visiting kids with cancer. So, I applaud Morgan Wallen. He kept his head down, focused on what actually mattered, which was doing the work. He didn't act like a big baby about it, and now he's more popular than ever. So, now that I'm done kissing his ass, let me tell you about how he's a cheater who gamed the system to quote-unquote sell over 3 million albums in the last 3 years. At the start of this video, I said there's an asterisk. People don't really sell albums anymore. Like, when you look at past artists who have sold the most albums, like, let's use old Michael Jackson's Thriller as an example. He sold somewhere between 50 million and 70 million copies worldwide. That means that literally 50 to 70 million actual vinyl records, CDs, cassette tapes, or maybe even 8 tracks of that album, a real, tangible item that contains the recordings of Wanna Be Startin' Something, The Girl Is Mine, Beat It, Billie Jean, PYT, and of course, Thriller, exist in the world. But that's not really how it works anymore. Oh sure, you've heard the news. Vinyl sales are up. 41 million records were sold in the US last year, and maybe you also heard that only 50% of people who buy vinyl actually own a record player. The other 50% are basically just buying a weird square poster for $48 a pop? Fuck me with a stylus. But in 2023, the majority of any album sales number is album equivalent units, a number that Billboard made up to make it seem like people still buy albums. Morgan Wallen's One Thing at a Time, for example, sold 501,000 album equivalent units in its first week. Billboard tells us that 76% of that came from streaming, which means that 120,240 copies were actual, physical, put the disc in the CD player, display it on your wall, or stick it up your ass for all we care copies. But the rest? The other 380,760 copies? Aren't copies at all. Billboard tells us that this is how they calculate units. One actual album sold equals one album sold. Good work. Or 10 individual tracks sold from an album, presumably digitally, since I don't imagine there's a ton of singles being sold physically. The vinyl craze hasn't brought back 45s yet. Or 3,750 ad-supported streams, so the poors who use Spotify without paying the $10 a month. Or 1,250 paid/subscription streams, so the suckers who actually pay for Spotify. So, how is Morgan Wallen gaming the system, you may ask? Well, let me answer by first asking you a question, because that's not fucking irritating as hell, right? How many songs do you think are normally on an album? Based on what Billboard's saying, probably about 10, right? After all, they said buying 10 songs from an album equals one album. Going back to Thriller, it had 9 songs. The second highest selling album of all time, AC/DC's Back in Black, has 10 songs. Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, also 10 songs. Fleetwood Mac's Rumors, 11 songs. But this ain't the fucking Middle Ages anymore, Grandpa. Piss on your 10-song dinosaur albums, you were getting ripped off. One Thing at a Time has 36 songs. 36! The longest song on the album clocks in at 3 minutes and 45 seconds, while the shortest is only 2 minutes and 18 seconds. There's no way that's enough time to talk about how your wife left you, your dog died, your pickup truck broke down, and you ran out of whiskey. I guess you just split those up into their own songs now. But anyway, if you have an album with 10 songs on it, someone would need to listen to it in full 375 times on Spotify for cheapos to equal one album sale. But if you have an album with 36 songs on it, you only need to listen to it 104 times to equal one album sale. But this is how all the cool kids are doing it now. Drake's Certified Lover Boy was 21 songs. Taylor Swift's Midnights, if you total up all the songs from all the different versions, has 23 songs. That Bad Bunny album, also 23 songs. If you want to be on the top of that Billboard 200 chart, then this is what you gotta do. And they do, because that matters for some reason. And man, those of us who bought albums in the 90s, we know that even with 10 songs, more than half of that album was filler. With 20 to 30 song albums, that's maybe 6 good songs in a fucking landfill of junk. But even that's kind of beneficial, because Spotify counts a play as when someone listens for 30 seconds. So, fans listen to a filler song for 30 seconds, go, okay, I've heard the best part, because every song is made now to get to the hook by that point. Then you skip to the next one, maybe listen to your 5 favorite tracks in full. You can blast through those 36 songs on Morgan Wallen's album in about half an hour. And he is 36 streams closer to another album sold. So, I said he's gaming the system, but this is the system now. And that is the game. It's a level playing field for everyone. Morgan just took it to a new extreme. He said, everyone's doing 20-song albums, I'll do 30. No, 36. You don't want to make a 36-song, nearly 2-hour album? Well, maybe you just don't deserve a #1 album then. And you know someone's gonna have to try and top that, because that's just how the industry is. So, when Cardi B releases her next album, and it's 40 songs about getting plowed and getting paid, and which parts of her anatomy are so sopping wet you can't spend an extended period of time near her without getting trench foot, you can blame Morgan Wallen for that. Maybe then, you'll wish those libs really had canceled them.